He was funny, he was smart, he was human, he was open, he was opinionated, he was curious, he was political, he was sexual, he was human.
And he was just so cool. You know, he was way cooler than everybody else. He was just, you felt connected to him. You liked him.
He personified that thing that you see when you're young and you go, that's it, that's the thing to be. And I wanted to be just like him, getting every word in the right spot. Because when he did it, it thrilled me, you know, and I wanted to do that. I wanted that skill, and I've spent my life pursuing it.
Just some of the comedians and stars talking about the influence that George Carlin had on their own careers. All part of the new documentary, George Carlin's American Dream, that premiered over the weekend. I got the chance to sit down with the man behind it, acclaimed Hollywood director, producer, and comedian himself, Judd Apatow, to talk about the film, to talk about George Carlin and the current political landscape in America that is remarkably keeping Carlin's comedy relevant nearly 14 years after his death, especially the attack on abortion rights by the Republican Party. I wanted especially to get Judd Apatow's own take on this unique political and cultural moment that we're in. Judd, what do you make of our current political moment? What do you make of the attack, not just on abortion rights, on our democracy, on truth and reality itself? A Republican Party that keeps producing people, Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, now Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, that if you tried to write these people as characters in a TV sitcom, you'd be laughed out of the writer's room.
Well, I think I'm sad that people have normalized so much madness. And, you know, when Trump went down the escalator and he made that speech and he talked about Mexicans being rapists, you thought it would end there, or you thought it would end with the Access Hollywood tape, and it just keeps going and going. And it's very disheartening, because what George Carlin was talking about is that we're all in this together. We have to lift each other up. We have to join forces to solve big problems. And he used to say that he was basically somebody who was a disappointed idealist. And we're not going to solve any of the problems of this country if it's just a war and tribalism. We see what's happening with the environment. We see what's happening with losing control of the government and losing rights. And it's headed in a bad direction. And I'm not really sure how it changes. The only way it really can change is just a massive amount of voting. And that is why the Republicans are fighting so hard to make it harder to vote. If they really believed in democracy, they would say, well, let's make it a holiday and let's make it really easy and let's get everyone voting. But I think their concern is it might not serve their interests and certainly corporate interests if the entire country voted.
So you and I have discussed before your alleged role in the rise of Trump. There is this theory, for those who don't know, that Trump ran for president because Barack Obama mocked him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner over a decade ago. You helped write some of those jokes. You and I have talked about that before. But I was thinking about it the other day because I went to my first White House Correspondents' Dinner. I was sitting very near to the table that Trump sat at. And I was thinking to myself, if he runs again, what is this country going to be like? How are we going to react? How do you think America will react to a Trump presidential run? Do you think he's actually going to run? And if he does, is the American news media ready for a Trump presidential campaign once again?
Well, I certainly don't think he ran for president because of a reaction to a joke or a night of jokes. It's something that he clearly wanted to do for a very long time, had almost jumped into the race several times during his life. I think we're all concerned because it does feel like he almost has to run as a way to avoid certain, criminal prosecutions. It's hard to prosecute him if he's running for president, because then he could say, well, this is just a way of taking me out of the race. And it does seem like he doesn't like sitting around. He likes to be in the center of things. He likes to be in the middle of a fight most of the time. He rarely gets excited about peace and calm and things just working. And I think we're all worried about it because, we want the country to be about us all taking care of each other. And the way that it's just a nonstop fight, it's not helping anything. Nothing's getting better. And we do need people that want to work with each other to solve problems and not just win.
So on that note, I got to ask, you and I met via Twitter. We first connected via Twitter. We both spend a lot of time on Twitter, me more than you. We have this new Trumpy figure on Twitter. Trump's no longer on Twitter, but we have this new Trumpy figure, Elon Musk, sucking up a lot of our time, attention with trollish tweets. What do you think about Elon Musk buying Twitter in the name of absolute free speech, or at least pretending he's going to buy Twitter, maybe?
I don't have a very strong opinion about it, other than I don't know if Twitter could get any worse at this point. I mean, when Twitter first started, people like me and you would meet, and there were a lot of artists on there writing jokes, being amusing. It was like a friendlier meeting place. And now it is all, hard news, a lot of toxic fighting, a lot of people attacking people. And it doesn't seem to be moving in the direction of connection and fun. And I don't know how you would change it. It may be that there's actually just a core problem with the platform that other places don't have. And so I'm really not sure that he's going to be able to do anything about that.
That's fair, although I'm glad we connected on Twitter. Judd, actor and Succession star Brian Cox recently did an interview with Piers Morgan where he railed against so-called cancel culture. I happen to think the cancel culture debate is overblown, has become a bit of a conservative talking point, but I wonder what you think as a comedian, as a writer, as a director. Are there things you worry about saying, or do you worry that if you say the unsayable in your comedy, in your art, in your documentaries, that you'll get cancelled?
I generally believe that, what my friend Colin Quinn says is true, which is you can say whatever you want, you just have to mean it. You have to think through what you're saying and be willing to stand behind it. It's our job as artists and comedians to find a way to connect with the audience and have our ideas come through. Comedians are doing very well. They're selling out hockey arenas. There's a lot of people who are very successful. I don't see people leaving the business because of comments that they've made. I'm much more concerned about banning books. I'm much more concerned about don't say gay laws in Florida where, they're shaming people for being who they are or shaming their parents. And I think that's the thing to be way more concerned about, not allowing people to learn the honest history of their country. I remember when I was a kid and I would hear about terrible things that had happened that our forefathers did. And I wasn't embarrassed. It didn't make me feel bad about myself. I just thought, well, I'm glad we're not doing it now, and I hope we're going to do better in the future. So I think it's all a distraction to what's really being taken away in terms of education.